Welcome to this week's edition of Spotlight on Jackson County. Michael Paul, your host. Glad to be here today with you, and we're very fortunate today to have the new city manager of Gautier, Mississippi here, Sidney Runnels.
Hey,
Sidney,
Michael.
it is a pleasure to see you, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here, Michael. I tell you, I've been here about 3 weeks now, 3.5 weeks, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, we're going to be very easy on you today. We're going to just kind of let you tell us some of your ideas and things, and we'll let you get your feet on the ground. About 6 months from now, we'll come back and we'll be hard on you. How about that?
Is that a guarantee?
That's a guarantee. Let's get into Sidney Runnels and a little background on you so people will know, because you're new here and a lot of people don't know you. Where'd you hail from when you were a kid, and tell me about your life.
Okay. I grew up in Canton, Mississippi. I was born in McGee, Mississippi, but I moved from McGee when I was about 5, and basically lived in Canton. I grew up there, went to school there, and my family raised us there. I come from a family of, I only have a younger brother, and I was in Canton basically up until I turned 47. But going backwards with that, I'd always been involved with different activities in Canton and being a part of that from school, and I felt after I graduated from Delta State University with a business degree. I worked in Jackson for about 5 years, and then it hit me one day that I started piddling in politics when I was in high school, and watching the conventions and watching the elections and being part of the governor's races of friends of mine and the things like that. So
it's interesting because I'm the same way. I love politics and I enjoy watching it. And it gets in your blood.
That's right. People think I'm crazy, but my Super Bowl is a convention.
Yeah. Did you watch the Democratic convention last night?
Yeah,
I did too. I watched it.
I watched the Republican convention.
I will too.
And I just like to see what they're saying and what they're doing. But anyway, when I was 28 years old, I decided that I wanted to be involved in politics. So I left my job in Jackson and ran for mayor of Canton. And so after I left my job, the election was postponed for 2 years. So I was, it showed I had a major commitment for running for office.
Now, how did that happen?
Redistricting. It was in court. Okay. And almost exactly 2 years to the day we had the election.
But the mayor is the whole city. Why would you wouldn't have a district problem?
They stopped all elections.
Okay, they just
awards and everything. They felt like that wouldn't be right to have one. So I ran against an incumbent, and I was basically, at 28, people thought it was probably a joke me running, and I put my footstep on 95% of all the people in Canton, and I led the ticket.
That's amazing.
I led the ticket. As a matter of fact, I liked it by 100 votes by winning over 2 other opponents in the incumbent. I got 2,100 and something votes. The incumbent got 600 and something.
You and I have a very similar story. I was 29 when I ran for the Board of Supervisors, and there were 12 or 13 people running, and I think 9 on the Republican ticket, and I won it without a runoff at 29.
It's just amazing.
It is. And I did the same thing you did, though. I went out and met the people. I didn't have any money.
Yes.
I went out and walked and knocked on doors. I had $3,000 or $4,000 that was donated to me, and that shows you local politics. People want to see the candidate. They want to see you out there and talk to you.
That's exactly what Michael. And the commitment that I made once I got elected, and I got elected took office in July of 1979, and I stayed in office until October the 14th of 1994.
Good for you.
So it was but I enjoyed the people. I was very open to the people, and I was not only involved at election time, but throughout my 4 years. Mm-hmm. I would let folks know that
you loved your job.
I loved my job. And in political office, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, and if somebody forces you to run, you're going to be very miserable, because it is a major commitment. And then that started happening, and the success rate that I had there was great. Great.
A lot of people don't understand when you mentioned the toughness that you have to have, the personal toughness that you have to be a politician, because of the things people say. It hurts your kids, it hurts your wife, it hurts your family, and they don't realize it, and they don't really. I guess a lot of people don't really care, but you have to have a certain toughness to stay in a job like that, and not go postal. I mean, it's very difficult because you have to maintain your cool all of the time, and you'll be sitting at home, watching TV or eating dinner, and before you know it, you've got a phone call of somebody that's got a problem that needs your help, and they don't care that it's 7:30 at night. They just know they need your help, and you have to be willing to deal with that.
Right, and their issue is more important than anything that's ever happened.
That's
in
exactly
the city,
right.
and that's why you have to look at that. And I've always enjoyed people, and I'm a people's person. I like to be out with the people, like I said earlier. And I think once they see what you're about, they can pretty well tell what kind of person you are.
So you were 16 years the mayor of
16.
Of Canton?
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that you and I didn't run across each other when I was on the Board of Supervisors, because we were up in Jackson area a lot for the I'm sure you must have gone to some of the supervisors' conventions and things of that nature.
I probably was, because I was on the MML Board of Directors.
When you walked in the door, you looked familiar to me. I can just say that. Now, I was 29. I look a little different now than I did when I was 29. But
I started losing my hair when I was in my 20s. So
mine's just turning gray. It's not turning loose, thankfully.
Well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with gray. It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
But and after I completed that, that the people of Canton blessed me in serving, I went to West Memphis, Arkansas, and was Director of Economic Development, Assistant to the Mayor there for 10 years.
West Memphis, Arkansas. What kind of place is that?
It's a place right over the river from Memphis. It's 6 miles, and has a population of about 30,000. And it's an area that is experiencing a lot of growth. While I was there, we had some good industrial development to happen there, and economic development, and it's
on the Mississippi River.
Mississippi River. I mean, it's some parts of the city is only like from the levee is only like half a mile.
I'll be.
But the levee's always protected the area, and it's never had any flooding or anything. But it's you go through it, going to St. Louis or going to Texas a lot of times, but it's a very busy. It's about 70,000 units a day that comes through there.
It's amazing.
It is,
Didn't realize
and it has a lot of trucking business, but it was a good community. And then I decided to move to, had an opportunity to buy a funeral home. I've been a funeral director since 1987, and I had a chance to buy a funeral home in Grenada. And after I was there about a year, the city manager's job came available. The person there retired, and I applied for the job and got selected. And it's just like a cancer when serving the public gets in your blood.
It really does.
Or like hunting, you can't quit.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I had. I knew that was not what I needed. The funeral home was a great business, and I enjoyed it, but that wasn't my calling. But I enjoy the hustle and bustle of being in government.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the funeral home too, because it's again serving people.
It certainly is, and that's a difficult task in itself. You've got grieving families, and you're trying to put together, a program for them, and I mean, I just can't imagine doing that. But somebody's got to do it. Thankfully, they do. So after the city managers, did you do anything else? City manager of Grenada?
No.
Then you came here.
Then I came here.
And you've been here now for about 3 weeks. Tell me what you think about the Gulf Coast.
Well, I've always enjoyed the Gulf Coast. I think it's a unique place for people to come and see our state and be able to sell our state to people. Because, that's one thing that folks enjoy.
Yes.
Just coming to the beach and being on the beach and the water and things like that. I used to come down here every year for the Mississippi Municipal Association, Municipal League, at least once a year.
Over in Biloxi, they used to have that, yeah. Do they still have the Municipal Association meeting in Biloxi?
Yes, it's still in Biloxi.
That may be where you and I possibly met, because we used to always go to those.
I did too. I would always attend those.
It's just, a lot of people don't realize it, and you're spending taxpayers' money to go to events where you meet people from all over the state, and there's also a lot of other folks that are there that do business with different cities and counties, and it gives you an opportunity, really, when you go to these events, to really broaden your horizons for your town.
Right.
And to be able to, at least for me, my experience was that I met a lot of smart, good people that we have right here in Mississippi that can give you help on different and various projects that you may be working on. Did you find the same experience?
Very much so. Networking is a valuable asset to the conferences, because you can sit down and have somebody to have free mind and clear mind about an issue. You can call them and let them talk about it. You talk about it with them, and they can give you an answer, and nobody or their opinion, and then you can take their opinion and help decide what would be the right thing to do.
Yeah. Okay. So then you've now left. Tell me about your family.
Okay. I have a wife. I've been married for 27 years in October. I have a son that is in Oxford. He works for the hospital, in our Baptist hospital up there in the business office. Then I have a daughter that just got married in June, and she's son is 26 and my daughter is 23, and she's a school teacher, Grenada Public Schools, and her husband works there, and so they'll be in Grenada. And then I have an 18-year-old son that just turned 18 this past Saturday.
Before we came in the studio, you were talking to Mr. Smith outside, and I heard you talking to him about your son's a senior this year, I guess.
Yes, he is a senior, and that was one thing that
It's tough.
It is. We thought about it, and he agreed to come, but it's just too much of a transition for somebody that's really involved in the school, and he's on the golf team, and he's on other soccer team, and it's just too much right now. And
you're just going to have to suck it up and do whatever you got to do to let that boy graduate.
That's exactly right, and that's the way it happened. And my wife has been a trooper on this. She's very supportive of this, and she believes that God put us here, and we prayed for the right direction, and that's what He did.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got yourself in the middle of something I don't know if I'd want to get in the middle of, but I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break, and we'll talk about that when we come back on Spotlight on Jackson County. Hey, welcome back to Spotlight on Jackson County. Michael Paul here with the new city manager of Gautier, Sidney Runnels, and Sidney and I have been talking about his history and all the things that he's done. And now I'm going to get into, I guess we'll call it the meat of the coconut. You are now the city manager of Gautier, which, to say the least, has had a lot of problems over the last few years. We could go into a lot more detail, but I'll just leave it at that. I will say that it is very apparent to most people observing the city of Gautier that there are two factions there in Gautier, and it seems that they're always opposing each other. And it was really nice to see actually a 7-0 vote to bring a city manager in. I mean, to bring you in there. It was 7-0.
I think it was.
Yeah, it was 7-0. There's been 3 city managers there in the last year and a half. So I'm saying that because I feel like you have your hands full with the city of Gautier. Now, after learning a little bit about you in the first half of this show, I think you're the right man to go over there and make the job and make the city of Gautier run right. I don't have any doubt that you have the ability to do it if you will be allowed to do your job. That's the only concern that I have. It seems like, and this is more commentary, and you can comment on it if you want to, but it seems like people show up at the meetings in Gautier, not necessarily to present ideas or to help the city. It seems like that they're there just to make sure that the other side or the other faction, these two factions, doesn't get anything that week. Have you noticed anything like this, or is this something that might concern you, or can you share any? I know you've only been there 3 weeks. Just comment on that if you can.
Well, basically, Michael, I've been there for 2 council meetings, and I feel like this. I want to put my 29 years experience to use here in Gautier in working with the council, the mayor, and the citizens of Gautier. I don't have any previous history of a lot of this, but the main thing that I'm here for is to move the city forward, and I hope that everybody will jump on the train with me. And it's a we situation.
Yes, it is.
Not I. And I hope that the people will come to the council meetings. I don't know why they come there now, but I hope they come there because they care about Gautier and care about what happens to our community. Because when somebody is elected from each ward, they're elected like that. But when they serve on a board, their commitment to Gautier should be all together. And I think that this is what direction that I'm working for, and this is what I want to see happen to our community.
Noble of you. Pascagoula, Moss Point, Ocean Springs, after Katrina, hundreds of project worksheets with FEMA. Gautier, as the last time I checked, only had 39. Will you follow through on projects? I mean, apparently there was no follow-through over there on any kind of projects, and there was a lot of things available, and may still be a lot of things available to the city of Gautier from FEMA and other government agencies, and I think the ball's been dropped. Are you the man that will sit down and look at these things and make sure Gautier gets their fair share?
I certainly will, and also we have a very excellent grants coordinator, and we work hand in hand. And anything that was started during Katrina will be followed through. And let me tell you this, Michael, I love to ask for money. I'm not bashful.
Yes.
They could either tell you two things, yes or no.
That's right.
But if there's anything out there, you can rest assured before the deadline's passed, we'll ask for the money. And if it's from millions to $1,000, if it can help our community, I will be there for it.
You know, it's one thing when you've run for office, you and I both have, you learn how to ask for money, because if you don't ask for it, you won't get it.
That's right.
And it's the same way with the city, government projects and all these things. And I'm glad to hear that you've got a good grants coordinator, because that's important as well.
Very much
getting the details done. You know, there was another guy right before you, Michael Whitmore, former chief of police of Pascagoula, and I'll disclose that he was my former boss and a great friend. Love him to death. He declined the city manager's job in Gautier, and the reason why he declined, I think, was because there was he wanted all of the city employees to fall under the purview of the city manager, and apparently the Gautier City Council doesn't want one particular individual, Linda Green, the city clerk, to be under the city manager. They want her under them. I don't understand why, but that's the way it is. Does that concern you at all?
It doesn't concern me, because my commitment to Gautier is not on personalities. It's not on people that's there. Linda and I've been there so far these 3 weeks, and we've worked together real well. As long as we're all focusing in on making Gautier better, I don't think it will be an issue. I've been through different situations like this through my last 29 years. May not be exactly like this, but we prevailed with a working relationship, and I don't see any problem that I won't do this with Linda.
You seem to be very much a diplomat in the way you answer your questions and even the way you carry yourself. I think that'll take you a long way in Gautier, because I believe there's some diplomacy that's needed over there. That's just my personal opinion. And you know, I do a radio show every morning over on WPMP, and Gautier is quite often a topic. Because of some of the things that happen over there are just out of the norm. When you go to a Pascagoula City Council meeting, or if you go to an Ocean Springs City Council meeting, or even Moss Point, other cities, even Biloxi, Gulfport, you don't see these kind of things happening there that are happening in the city of Gautier, and it's just not, doesn't appear to be the norm.
Well, in my interview that I had with the council, I told them that this is no game to me. This is a major responsibility, and this is something that it's a job. And if I can't fulfill the responsibilities that I need to do, if I don't feel like I'm doing them in a way that I need to do, if I'm not committed to the entire city of Gautier, I don't need to be in this job. And what I'm doing is taking my experience and moving ahead with the people of Gautier. Each and every community is different. Each and every situation is different. Each and every person is different.
Yeah.
And I've got to address those as I go through it, and understand that there's answers that can be answered that may not have been answered, but we want to try to do that. I have a very open door policy. I want people to have a voice in their government. Government is not owned by the council or the mayor or the city clerk
its
or
own
the city
loan
manager. Its own loan. And my tenure here is not forever.
Yeah.
And I don't own this city. I have the privilege of serving, and that's the way that I approach it.
Let's see here. There's one other issue that I think is very important in the city of Gautier. You know, police chief over there, great friend of mine, known him all of my life, even way back when I was a law enforcement officer, he was too. Nothing personal here, but he's been ill, and he's had some medical problems. And you don't have a deputy chief in Gautier. There was a big rift about this, in fact. This is one of the things that caused the demise of the last city manager. I mean, what are we going to do? And I say we because the whole community is subject to the public safety division of Gautier, which is the police department. And I say if we have a natural disaster, what do we do if we don't have a deputy chief, a second person in command? What do we do when we have lieutenants running the police department? Which is nothing wrong with lieutenants doing that. That's what rank is for. When one's gone, the next one takes over. But there's no deputy chief still to this day. What are you going to do about that?
Basically, I've met with Chief Williams several times since I've been here, and I'll be meeting with he as well as other department heads more to assess and evaluate where we are with different situations. I want, of course, our public safety is a major concern and support of mine in making sure that we do have public safety at all times. And I'm one to see if we need to, in any department, if we need to make some reorganization or changes, I present those in a way and support why I'm doing this. And that's just the way I operate. It's as well as any other department. It's not just the police chief.
With all due respect, Mr. Runnels, I mean, every police department in the country has got a deputy chief or either a colonel or a major or somebody under the chief that is there in his stead or in case of an emergency or the death of. I mean, you need that second in command who's right there all the time. And I think this is a priority. And personally, for being a law enforcement officer myself, I mean, I just like to see and know that something's going to be done about it. I thought, frankly, that a great decision was made with Dante Elbin, and of course they reduced him back. A terrible tragedy was done to him, in my opinion, by reducing him back to a captain and taking the payback from him after they'd already promoted him. And I hate that happened, but it's just my hope that you'll get this straightened out, and it needs to be done because they got to have a second in command.
Well, I want the people of Gautier to feel safe and secure because we do have a dedicated police department that's doing their job out there, and I'm on top of it, and I'm seeing what we need to do.
Let's talk a little bit. We've got a couple of minutes left, and I sure have enjoyed being here with you, but I know that there's some other things. You've got some plans, you've got some ideas, some visions for the city of Gautier. Let's talk about economic development. What are you going to do?
Well, I think I've mentioned this several times to people when I came here. The coast has a tremendous potential now since we're going through the Katrina process. Gautier has a tremendous opportunity for us to grow. I think that with the different developments that we have in different subdivisions, different condominiums that are being on the drawing board that will be started, and with some of the changes that are taking place that have already been mentioned about in the newspaper, you've seen about the revitalization of Singing River Mall.
That's fantastic. The Sangani Group is now owner of the mall, right?
Yeah. Well, I think
or in the process.
I think that we have a mall that will blossom. The mall has been a major asset to Gautier for a number of years, and we want it to be a greater one because it's the timing of, a mall has a lifetime of really every about 15 to 20 years they need kind of a facelift.
Yeah, they do.
And I think this is what's going to happen to us. And with the vacants, we have plenty of land, and of course I've been directly. This is what I did for 10 years solely, and I think our opportunities for economic development is seeking and finding and asking and doing what we can to assist them, because I'm committed to being proactive instead of reactive.
Yes, great way to be.
That's what we have to be, and I think the people come, and once we develop, the people will shop, and I think we can see in the next 5 years a direction of having a different, unique pattern for Gautier. I'm a visionary. I want to see where we can be and know more. Right now, we're working on 5 years from now. This year, next year is pretty well gone.
Right.
We got to be thinking about 5 years, 10 years. Where do we want to be? And I think that's what we need to do, and instill a commitment to the community of pride and skill in the community in being involved. And I think once that happens, it'll work.
So glad to have you today.
Thank you, Michael.
City Manager Sidney Runnels from the City of Gautier, the new city manager, only been here a couple of weeks. Thank him so much for joining us here on Spotlight on Jackson County. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you again next week. Bye.
Answer app.